the main key points from all of that, so that we're able to really empower ourselves. And one of the things that I absolutely really scream from the rooftops right now is about how menopause is not a time of life that we need to just sit back and admit that this is kind of the end of it for us, right? Which sounds really quite awful. This is about being really much within our space ourselves, reclaiming who we are, being able to celebrate that vibrancy inside. And why, I'm 38 now, why at 38 should I step back from feeling sexy, sassy, vibrant, and wanting all of that still in life?
And
So
you
it's about
certainly
really
do
that.
do look that way. And thank you for taking the microphone. You also have a
You're super
podcast as well.
welcome.
So I'm not sure if talking about the self-advocacy really got me fired up. So why do you think menopause is still so taboo? I mean, it's ridiculous because it's a natural thing that happens. And I think that it can be such a period of challenges, but transformation. And, as you lose your fertility, all of a sudden you have all of this extra energy for other things. But why are we just talking about it? And why is it still taboo?
Yeah, it's such an amazing question. And you know what? I wish I actually had a black and white answer for you. But I would say that it's still very much a subject that a lot of generations back, if we think about even my parents' generation, my parents are in their 60s, they didn't talk about this. This wasn't a topic of conversation. We barely even spoke about periods. So when it comes to even, asking back into generations where my mum never spoke to her mum and they never mentioned menopause. It was one of these things that women were just kind of, don't talk about it, just get on with it, and don't tell us about what's happening. So I greatly believe that a lot of this is because we've just never spoken about it. We've never had the confidence and the gumption to really step into our space as powerful women and see this isn't something that we need to feel is, an old woman thing. This doesn't happen to old women. It's not something that we have to just suffer through. So I greatly believe the answer to that question is we've never openly spoken about this as much as we have even just in the last 12 months.
Yeah, and it's true. And I think that just speaking about it really changes the way that we're approaching it, that it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, shame is you're bad. And for us to be ashamed of our bodies, and I can only think how that amplifies the symptoms when you're in the closet, when you're ashamed, when you think that there's something wrong with you. So I think that we're all healing each other by simply talking about it. And we're talking about it a lot. I mean, the amount that I've seen, even, and I've met both of you through Instagram, the number of people talking about it. And again, these celebrities coming out and not looking at it as something to be ashamed of, but yeah, I'm going to go through this. I think it's like that generation, Gen X women went through, the infertility issue, and like, I'm talking about this. I want help. I'm advocating for myself. So it's really, really tremendous. So what do women really need to know about menopause to be empowered?
Amazing question. I love it. I love it. The main thing is that it's knowledge, right? It's being aware that at the moment, 51% of 100% of the world's population will go through menopause. So this is not about if or I might be able to just skip past it. I hear this a lot. I think I skipped my menopause, Adele. I feel fine. And actually, that's where we celebrate the fact that these women and some women will not really have many symptoms. But it's being fully aware that recognizing any change in your body that's not normal for you. And we normally find that with a lot of women, it can start with a change in menstrual cycle or bleed frequency or flow. We can maybe, speaking very plainly with this, we can have heavier bleeds, we could have lighter bleeds. We may find that our cycle term or time that we normally bleed or do not is all off. And actually, for a lot of women, I was one of them, we use contraception. And I was using the Marina coil for my contraception, which means and I don't get a bleed anyway. So that wasn't the first indication for me that there was change in my body. So again, it's where this comes down to your uniqueness and being really, really attuned to who you are, what's normal for you. That's a huge one.
Claiming it for yourself and learning to listen to your body, knowing what
100%.
feels right and what feels normal for you. And as I said in the opening, advocating for yourself and asking questions. And if you have a physician that doesn't support you, then find somebody who does, and knowing that there are a wide number of treatment options and you don't have to suffer. And also, I think what's exciting is that it's changing in the workplace, like, particularly in Britain. I was reading that I guess 90,000 women leave the workforce every single year because of menopause. That is crazy. What can women do to, keep their jobs, to advocate for themselves in the workforce?
Amazing. Because, yeah, I'm one of them. So I'm in there with that population of women who walked away from 20 plus years in a very corporate environment, very senior managerial position with unique skill set. And because I was denied the support that I needed for just, reducing hours back, being able to take some time for my body to heal and to start my hormone replacement therapy journey, but was denied that support. So had no other option but to resign and walk away. And that's quite extreme, but the symptoms I was experiencing were so life-changing and debilitating that I had no other option. So I would say that in the workplace, what we're facing here is, again, for female workplaces predominantly as well, we need to appreciate that women need the support. And gone are the days that it's we'll just order you up a fan for your desk, then you can get on with it. It's like, no, actually, we need to be able to openly talk about these things. I've got a lady that I'm working with just now who had a really severe bleed at her work in the middle of a meeting. It's having the compassion, it's having the knowledge within the workplace that actually she is so humiliated by that happening. But how do we protect that? How do we give her space to then go and clean herself up and, take the rest of the day off because of the trauma that she's faced? So it comes into more than just having a policy or a statement that a lot of companies are looking to do. It comes into the compassion and the understanding that not every woman will need the same level of support. It's very much in that have a space that is safe, vulnerable. People can come there and be vulnerable, men as well. This doesn't just affect women. And have the ability for conversations to happen, for support to be there in-house. Or if it can't be in-house through menopause support coaches, then look at that being an external, subcontracting out or bringing in some help so that women just have a space to go to and be heard. It starts there.
And it's so important because we're at our prime. I'm sorry about this cough today. We're at our prime. So how do you educate women while coaching them?
How or why?
How?
How? Okay, wonderful. So I actually, this was something that for me, it seemed like a really unusual gap that I could see within a lot of coaching. Now, when I came into the menopause support space, I actually fell into it by accident. I onboarded a new client who had breast cancer and she could not replace hormones, but she came to me to say, I really need some help with this, and you've been recommended. So very honestly, I'd said, look, I'm going to remain within my scope of practice. The breast cancer side, I can't advise you on, but I can certainly support you with the core foundation elements around what your body needs. So along the journeys, what I do with my ladies is I educate as we go. I always explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, so the science is in there. Okay, I'm an evidence-based practitioner, so everything is around what does the research say? What do we know within any trials that have been conducted? And unfortunately for us, there's not a lot of female trials, if any, in the menopause space. So we're very much reliant upon some very kind of suggestible data and this world where we're having to almost be the test subjects ourselves right now on, well, what works? Yeah, we've had a lot come into the space around, should we replace hormones? Should we not? This is an ongoing debate in this space. And for me, it's about giving that full empowerment. So where there is education to be given, I actually host a lot of education inside my coaching. So every week we have a Learn Lounge for those ladies. But I also run a menopause support coach certification which has been fully endorsed by a UK menopause GP, and we are fully CPD accredited. So it's a really strong curation of all the different elements of what we know within this space so far and keeping up to date with the research. And I
And
share that with my ladies.
it's amazing, you as a businesswoman, you utilize it. And I love the story because it's really looking at opportunity within challenges, with this challenge of going through early menopause in the workforce. And you've created an incredible business, not just as a coach, but a whole coach certification, which is making a huge difference in the world. So just commending you
Massive.
on the work that you're doing to change the way that we are viewing menopause and being able to help not just one-on-one, but being able to train coaches to help more and more women.
Yeah, and it's a massive gap that we see. And this came from a space of when I first had my very first conversation with my GP, I actually ended up in tears on the phone to them because their exact words to me were, Adele, I don't know anything about the menopause, but I can give you standard HRT. Is that good enough? And to me, it was just unbelievable that I was then having to guide the conversation of, well, actually, what is standard HRT? And the conversation answer I had to that was, well, I can give you estrogen. So they didn't even appreciate that I needed a progesterone. Now, they didn't know I had the Mirena coil at this point. So I would have just been prescribed an estrogen at 37 years old without a progesterone. So there was this lack of understanding and knowledge, which it's not the GP's fault. This is not pointing fingers at anybody. It's not there within the education system. So there's this element where I could see that the quickest and easiest way for us to get frontline care, this triage of care out there, was to work with personal trainers, health and fitness coaches, beauticians, business coaches, people that were touching the base of women's lives every single day with what they were doing. And so far, we've managed to help hundreds of women in the last 6 months through me taking the knowledge that I've built up. I'm mentored by 2 amazing menopause doctors in the UK. And just being able to curate this 12-week certification has enabled us to branch out basically around the world to really give women a voice, to bridge the gap between GP's appointments and the client, so that we actually step in to write to the GP ahead of their appointment and advise of, here's everything that we've been doing together, here's the progress that your patient has made, and here's what we're actually asking for you to do and why. Here's the science, here's the bit that you're going to want to know about. And the response that we've had from that has been phenomenal. We've only had one GP practice write back to us to say, we can't support this patient with what you're asking for. And what we asked for was some bloods to be ran alongside a review of the HRT preparation she was on, because it was oral. We wanted to move her on to transdermal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're also changing government policy in terms of your health plans and allowing women to get HRT and having that covered, which is huge.
Yeah, so I mean, this is it. Within the UK, there's a massive uprising at the moment. We've got, this week alone, we've been in Parliament. We've had a lot of campaigners, frontline and centre. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but plan to be at our October rally down in London at the Houses of Parliament. So it's absolutely finding its voice. And the more that we can hear, the more that we can get out there, the more that we can have this support, that more than anything, that solid space of knowledge. And this is where, the likes of social media has really lent itself. We've been able to bring a lot into that space. And we talked about this before and we actually started recording this session, but I do a pay it forward and I spend a good 4 to 5 hours every single week where I help women free of charge. So it's done very quietly, just in the background. It can sometimes just be some voice messages. They maybe have a question to ask. And sometimes it goes right through to a half an hour private consultation, which I pay that forwards because I appreciate that some women can't afford to come down the private route. And why should they have to all the time, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about HRT because we're hearing a lot about hormone replacement therapy. Can you tell us about what this looks like for women's health and how does a woman determine whether or not it's a good option?
Mm. I mean, this is it. So, one disclaimer I will make is that I do replace my hormones. And the reason that I personally chose to replace my hormones is through the knowledge that I've built over time. Now, previously, HRT then to HRT now is entirely different. And we know this as medicine moves on, we have advancements. So, the way that we look at HRT in this year, 2022, I have this full appreciation of our new level of love for our female sex hormones, and those core hormones being estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So, to answer that question, I'm going to share a tiny little bit about my own journey. The symptoms that I experienced when my estrogen and progesterone levels were dropping were so severe that, like I say, I left a big career because of it and moved ahead. But also, once replacing those hormones and appreciating that my mum's mum passed from Alzheimer's, so there was a heightened risk already within the female gene pool that I could potentially be at a heightened risk of degenerative brain disease. So didn't want to play with fire. We know that estrogen is very brain protective. We also appreciate that estrogen is very bone and muscle protective and cardiovascular protective. So for me, it was absolutely a yes. I need to replace this. I'm 37. I'm too young to be experiencing this. And I'd actually had a couple of fragility fractures in the past as well. So at the moment, for me, it was just too much of a risk not to replace those hormones. So to answer the question around HRT, I would say that this is one where it is very individual. Definitely making sure that women are knowledged, that they appreciate the knowledge behind this and they get to research it so that they can make their decisions. But I've only ever had one lady that I've worked with that could not replace her estrogen and progesterone. So we did that a very alternative therapies route. But I'm very much in favour of replacing hormones and feel phenomenal for doing it. So that's got to be said for something.
Yeah, and you look phenomenal as well. And we only have about 2 minutes left, but I want to talk a little bit about feeling sexy and sassy again, because I think that's a big issue when women are going through menopause. They lose their libido, maybe there's some vaginal dryness, they're not in the mood, they're not sleeping well. How do we feel sexy and sassy again when we're going through perimenopause?
Yeah, it's such an amazing question. And this is one that I would say it comes with time and it comes with working on yourself. So this is all about your inner work. And I'm a qualified positive psychology coach and breathwork facilitator. We do a lot in that mind space where we work together on yourself, your inner being, and getting to appreciate who you are again. And one of the questions that I ask my ladies a lot at the start of that journey is, for example, Sophie, what brings you joy? What really lights you up inside and makes you feel happy, joyful? And we start there and we take that journey through your joy route. And from there, we're able to get you doing more of that. And as you start to reconnect with who you are inside, that is where your sassiness starts to rebirth. And this is where we start to make vast improvements in your health. If you have some body composition changes that you want to make, all of this comes together to form that alliance inside your body and your brain and just have you in your power space. And when we've got you in your power space, you're unstoppable. That is the exciting part.
I love that because, joy comes from within. And when we do connect with that emotion, we are unstoppable and we love our life regardless of what is going on. And we can face whatever challenges come our way with grace and use them as opportunities. Hey, we are going to take a break now. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. If you'd like to get in touch with me, just check out themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. We'll see you on the other side.
Follow the Voice America Variety channel on Twitter. Our hosts always have something to say, and we know that you do.
Sorry, it was a second early. Here we go.
That's at Voice AM Variety. You are listening to Rock Your Midlife with Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. Have a question for Dr. Ellen or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5788. That's 866-472-5788. Now, back to the show. Here again is Dr. Ellen.
Welcome back to Rock Your Midlife. So glad that you are here today. We're talking all about menopause, and I want to let you know that the show is sponsored by the Optimal.me for the midlifer who wants to feel younger, stay active, independent, and energetic without pain or injury, and feel confident that this phase of life is their best yet. I have been using their membership site, loving their integrated movement. It really helps me with my joints, keeping them really young and vibrant. You too can take control of how you age with the Optimal.me. You're never too old to take a smarter approach to aging and give yourself the freedom and to make the next chapter whatever you hoped for and more. And before the break, we were talking to Adele Johnston, who is just incredible. She has so much information, so much compassion. And we are now going to be talking to Sophie Fletcher, who is a best-selling author, hypnotherapist, coach, and trainer. Her focus over the last 15 years has been on women and transitions, whether these be hormonal shifts or others. Her 3 books, Mindful Hypnobirthing, Mindful Mama, and Mindful Menopause, are all bestsellers and are packed with practical mindset tools that can be easily integrated into busy lives. She trains health professionals and also helps support the implementation of menstruation and menopause policies in the workplace. She has as a background in language, symbols, and metaphor and storytelling, and she is a fellow of the National Council for Hypnotherapy. And we met on Instagram through Mindful Menopause. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Sophie. So great to have you here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And I know you've got a question for Adele, so I would love to know what you want to know from Adele.
Well, it's great to meet Adele because even though we're in the UK, we've never met before. So, and I have so many questions, but one I am really interested in because it's about transformation is your transformation yourself, Adele, is amazing. Your story is incredible. But I'm interested to know, with the women you work with, how many of them go through that type of radical transformation and move out of a fairly constricted workplace or are forced to because of the situation and actually discover themselves in a new space and just wake up, I suppose, is the word I'd like to use.
Yeah, I love this question. So, to answer the question just openly, every woman that comes through what I do, there's a proven framework that I use that I've designed and developed over the last couple of years. And every single one of them come in, but leave completely revitalized. So at the moment, I have half a dozen ladies that are actively seeking change. One of them has left her corporate career and gone out on her own with something she's desired to do for years, but never had the confidence to. I've had one of the ladies had 3 promotions within the space of the last 18 months. And another lady just now who has just went for semi-retirement when that was not even on her cards 12 months ago. So this becomes part of that inner work that we talked about just previously, where as soon as we reconnect really with who we are inside, something powerful and magical really happens. And we start to then have this oomph within ourselves that's so vastly vibrant and sassy. And that is what I am all about in this menopause journey, is helping women to reclaim who they are and use that powerfully. We've had marriages who, previously were really a bit rocky, managed to really, really, really connect again. And that's the beauty in this. It's not just about the woman, but it's also about the loved ones and the family unit. And that's what's so special.
Yeah, I think it's just this whole midlife and menopause time, as like Brene Brown says, the universe like shakes you by the shoulders and says, I'm not messing around anymore. It's time for you to wake up. You're running out of time. And I think that the menopause forces us to pause. And that's why I wrote my book, Rock Your Midlife, to give women 7 steps to transform themselves, whether you love yourself, you're working on your health, you're working on empowerment, relationships, enlightenment. You can enter in many ways, but it is this incredibly powerful time to transform. So let's get into, Sophia, you're so about transitions and transformations.
Mhm.
Why do transitions matter to you, and what are they?
Well, I started off many, many years ago writing my academic master's on individuation, which is growth and the alchemy of that. And I focused on it in literature. And at the time, it was more about us as human beings and how we grow. And it wasn't until I had my first child and then my second that it struck me that those phases where we have those hormonal shifts are actually very vulnerable phases for us. And we can feel very fragile in those phases, but they're also times of massive transformation. And so it felt at that point that everything I'd learned about as a 20-year-old that I hadn't probably really understood, as I became a mother, it was like, wow, I totally get this. And then as I look back, I realized the same was happening as an adolescent, those shifts and changes. And now that I'm in my midlife and I'm perimenopausal, it's happening again. And they are times of massive transformation, massive change, but you've got to know it to be able to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's perspective. I know you talk a lot about the power of belief and, you know, the way that you are approaching it. So how do we kind of use narrative and our beliefs to help us navigate through menopause?
Well, I think it's very difficult unless you consciously start to look at it. We are very conditioned in our responses to the world around us by our unconscious beliefs and our cultural narrative. So you earlier on, you were talking about the taboo about speaking about menopause. And that's because we live in a patriarchal narrative that has been around for hundreds of years. And until we start to learn and understand that and know what we can do to change it and how that narrative is reflected in our own actions and behaviors, then it's time that we need, then we can start to change it. So that's with hypnotherapy. I'm very much on board with working with the unconscious and looking at that and being able to change that, and helping people to pivot their thinking.
So how does hypnotherapy work for people who aren't familiar with it? And let's, you know, stick to this perimenopause conversation. How can doing hypnotherapy help a woman change the way she is going through this incredible time of life?
Well, I've written a book on it, so there are a lot of things that it can do. So I use mindfulness as well as hypnosis. So there are so many things. I work around sleep and rest. So there are hypnosis tools that you can use to help you sleep, help you reframe how you view sleep and rest, because rest is as important to re-energizing yourself as sleep. And it's understanding the brainwaves and how they work. Hypnosis can help you lose weight. It can and really help with anxiety as well. But what people don't realize is that hypnosis is actually really effective for hot flushes. In some studies, it shows that 73% of women see an improvement in their hot flushes using hypnosis imagery, which is actually extraordinary. And it is recognized as a therapy that helps certainly in some areas. It's been well evidenced. So
what do women visualize? I'm curious, but when your client comes, what do you have them visualize?
Yeah, I have a track that people can download for free. And it's just imagery of being in a very cold, imagining yourself outside. It's very cold, it's very snowy, somewhere that's very familiar to you. Your feet are in the snow and you can feel that coolness moving up through your body. And you go into a lot of hypnotic language around the description. And I wrote this and I recorded it, and it takes a while to write a track, and I practiced it. And when I was recording it for my book, I had to put on a really thick jumper during the visualization because I got so cold. So, and it's all about conditioning. The more you listen to it, the more conditioned you are to respond to it. It's like any habit or behavior, but you can learn to do that through imagery. So it's brilliant for things like that. I lost a lot of hair, for example. I've lost a lot of hair with my menopause, for example. I look totally different to how I looked 8 years ago, completely different. And when my hair comes out, instead of getting angry about it or anxious or worried, I say, I give my hair thanks for the service it's given me and wish it well on its way. And I often give gratitude for the hair that I have. So I have a very positive approach to myself. But that belief, because my belief is if I get stressed and anxious about it, you get into this cycle, and stress and anxiety can exacerbate menopause symptoms. And so tools like hypnosis, CBT, mindfulness help to break that cycle of anxiety. And we all know that heightened anxiety in menopause can increase cortisol. It has an impact on sleep, what we eat, hot flushes. And so that's really important to be able to change your beliefs so you can break that cycle of anxiety.
Yeah, very powerful, but you're essentially using biofeedback.
Yeah.
That you're using the power of your mind to influence what happens in your body, which is incredible. A couple other tools too that we haven't talked about is breath work is really, really powerful. So if you are feeling anxious, simply doing some box breathing. So breathing in for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4 is super, super powerful. Let's talk a little bit about that stress cycle. How does that impact menopause? So I know stress is going to increase cortisol levels. So how does that affect a woman who's going through perimenopause?
Well, one of the first things that certainly my friends used to notice was irritability and mood. I know that Adele talked about periods, but for some women, it's their mood. And my friends would say to me, "Oh, I don't know why I'm shouting at the children so much. You know, I don't know what's going on." And that's that stress, that anxiety starting to rise, that cortisol starting to rise. And so with hypnosis and those types of mindset therapies, you can start to dampen that response down. And so stress can impact on our sleep. So first of all, high levels of cortisol can lead to night sweats, which wake people up, and then they may find it harder to get back to sleep again. And then they may feel stressed about the fact that they're going to be so tired the next day. So the more stressed someone is, the harder it is to get back to sleep. And so some of the strategies I might work on with people are to give them suggestions, hypnotic suggestions, to go back to sleep when the time is right for them, but also look at those times that they're awake as peaceful pauses rather than stressful moments, and to use tracks like whether it's hypnosis or guided imagery that slow your brain waves down so that you're dampening down that stress response in the night, and you're allowing your brain waves to rest to an extent that you can feel more energized the next morning, even if you feel like you haven't slept. And of course, the knock-on effect of not having any sleep is it produces a hormone called ghrelin, which increases hunger and the need for carbs and things. So people tend to so it can lead, so stress, if you can work on that stress and work through those, identify where someone's stress points are during this period and give them strategies and tools to manage those and turn them around, then it can make it just is like a ripple effect.
Yeah, I don't think we give sleep enough credit. I feel so many times when I talk with women who are going through perimenopause, sleep is the big issue that is causing a lot of the other issues, such as you said. It's not just that the ghrelin, is elevating your hormones, appetite hormones aren't setting correctly, but you're also tired. And so often we mix up our tired, thirsty, hunger, we're more irritable. So if you're listening and you're struggling, I would say work with a trained practitioner, get your sleep under control, because you will feel a lot better and function much more effectively if you do get your sleep issues under control. I'm curious, what are the biggest issues that you see with men, the biggest side issues women complain about who are going through perimenopause? I know we've got weight loss, we say flashes, you guys say flushes, hot flashes, sleep issues, moodiness. What do you see are the leading issues, and how do you address them?
The things that I see as a hypnotherapist are anxiety, sleep, and weight gain. Those are the three big ones. But what I also get, which is very, very interesting, and this is anecdotal between other therapists as well, is the sudden onset of phobias, quite severe anxiety to the point of phobias. So I work on a lot of phobias with women in the midlife. But yes, I mean, sleep is a big one. That's the one that I would say, most with. And just general confidence. There's really strange things that come up again and again people tend to come to a hypnotherapist when they're desperate. I am the last resort because people don't understand what hypnosis really is. And I've had 3 or 4 people recently who feel really anxious in the theatre, and they don't want to sit. They feel really anxious sitting in the middle in seats in the theatre. And driving is another big one. So Adele's nodding, you recognize this. So driving, suddenly get anxious about driving. So there are some very, predictable anxieties that I see that come up that I work with, because with hypnotherapy, you're very solutions focused. So people will come in with one thing usually, or if it isn't one thing, I'll bring it down to one thing for those sessions. But yeah, I mean, the sleep thing, I just want to say that I'm a big believer in not putting pressure on people to sleep. And that's why I do so much work on the difference between sleep and rest, and what happens in our brain when we're resting. So I think, I want to take the stress out of people trying to sleep and saying it's okay if you're not asleep. Just people, and with your listeners, I don't mean to annoy anyone who doesn't have sleep, but I'm in my 50th year and I sleep about 7 to 9 hours a night, and I very rarely wake up. If I do, I get up and I do stuff, or I go out for a really early morning walk, but I never get stressed about it. And I generally go back to sleep again if I do wake up. But I've done the work around it. I really have.
So what is the difference between sleep and rest?
Well, I found I worked on this when I was working with new mums who really couldn't sleep, and they were snatching sleep here or there. And anyone who does yoga will know that when you rest your mind, when you're doing a yoga nidra, that I'm not a yoga practitioner, so I'm estimating here. I think around 30 minutes of yoga is the equivalent to 15 minutes of yoga is about the equivalent to half an hour's sleep or thereabouts. And the reason for that is as the brain waves slow down, your mind is able to rest. So you go into, in hypnosis, typically you go into a theta brain state if you're listening to tracks in your bed. So your brain rests really deeply, and it can feel like sleep. But if we're up panicking and worrying about not sleeping, those brain waves are working at sort of alpha beta level. They can be quite fast, and so that's hard work, and it can be really tiring. So actually just focusing on rest. Hey, I'm going to put some tracks on. I'm just going to close my eyes and listen to these tracks for half an hour, an hour. And if I sleep, great. If I don't, I'll still feel rested. And that's the type of attitude that I have. And mindful walking. I do a lot of mindful walking if I'm tired. Like today, I went out late last night. I went to see Darren Brown, if anyone knows who Darren Brown is. He's a very famous hypnotist in the UK, mentalist in the UK. And I came back quite late. And today I was really tired. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought, I feel nappish. I feel like I need a nap. And I said, shall I have a nap or shall I go for a mindful walk? And I chose the mindful walk. And I felt completely energized because of it. And it was a choice, despite the fact I was a bit tired. So I think learning that it's not all about sleep. It's not the be all and end all. There are other ways to feel rested. And mostly people would say, well, I just want to feel like I've got some energy. It's not about the sleep. It's about the energy.
Yeah, I love that you listened to your inner knowing and realize, and we can do that. I know that's something I'm tuning into a lot. We're so taught to just listen to our brain, and there are other aspects of ourselves that can give us more knowledge. So before we turn back to Adele and have her ask you a question, I'm wondering if you can dispel some of the myths around hypnosis, what it is, what it's not, because I know a lot of people listen like, hypnosis, isn't that like, someone has a watch and they kind of make you do strange things? We have a lot of weird, weird ideas. What exactly is it, and what are some of the myths around it?
Well, I would never have gone to a hypnotherapist before I had my children. It wasn't even on my radar. And I used it for hypnobirthing, because it's quite popular in the UK for women. A lot of women use hypnobirthing, and that's where they're introduced to hypnosis. And it was amazing. It completely changed my birth. And really, it's just getting to know your mind, and you are always in control. I always say to people, it's a bit like an ethical placebo, because you talked about biofeedback. It's using the power of your mind to change your habits and behaviors, but knowing you're doing it. And it's the most relaxing thing. People sometimes call hypnosis relaxation. It's not. It is relaxing, very relaxing. It feels wonderful. And usually once people have had it, that's it. It's transformational because it is so practical. You can use self-hypnosis very safely, very easily. We're all in hypnosis most of the time. So because we are not mindful, if you're thinking about what you're going to put on the table when you're driving home from work, and suddenly you get home, you think, wow, that journey went really quickly today. Your unconscious has driven you home. You've been in a state of hypnosis driving your car home because you're not in the present. And so hypnotherapists just use that natural state of mind that we're in to change deeply rooted habits and behaviors that are set in the past, that may have protected us in the past but aren't relevant anymore. And it helps you to get out of that critical analytical mind. And it just, honestly, it's life-changing. And most hypnotherapists I know are hypnotherapists because it changed their life. It's nothing like the swinging watches and men in top hats waving wands or whatever. Nothing like that at all. It's very empowering therapy, but do find the right therapist if you're thinking about it. Do your research and visit a few people, or look at their websites and learn about them.
Very enlightening. Thank you for that. So Adele, do you have a question for Sophie? We have about 2 minutes left. Would love to know if have a question brewing.
Yeah, actually. So when you were all of that, love it, love everything about it, been nodding away in the background. But I think the one thing that stuck out for me, Sophie, was around when you said around conditioning of the mind. And this is definitely something that we kind of carry through childhood, right, into our adult lives. And we've learned a lot of these thoughts, feelings, actions, behaviors. So my question for you would be around, do you have any top tips? Doesn't need to be the whole 3, but any tips?
Go for 1 or 2 because we only have about a moment left. So 1 or 2 for you, Sophie.
Pivoting your thinking.
Perfect timing. I was talking about one today with someone else. There's something called the happiness prescription. So for those that are listening that want to do this, you've got 1 week, and just allow yourself to stop and notice when you're saying something that, if it's around menopause, saying or thinking something that may not be true. Question it. Why is that true? Or if it's a narrative about yourself, oh, I'm so this, I'm so menopausal. So statements like that, actually turn that around. Why, turn that into a positive in that moment. I'm so powerful. But just for a week, turn the narrative around to a positive and see how you feel at the end of that week.
And you can also check out Byron Katie's work is wonderful, where she asks the 4 questions. So Sophie, thank you for that. Real quickly, Sophie, where can people find you? Website.
I'm on Instagram at mindful_menopause. You can also buy my book on Amazon, Mindful Menopause. And I have a website, sophiefletcher.co.uk.
And Adele, where can people find you?
Probably the best thing to do is to jump into Google and put Adele, the menopause coach, and everything will come up.
All right, the menopause goes. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Adele. It has been a joy being with both of you. You both are doing incredible work. So intrigued about hypnotherapy. So I might give you a ring on that one. Thank you all so much for listening. It's been a joy being with you today. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. We'll catch you next week.
All right, you are clear.
Okay, sorry about those awful
Great
complaints.
job,
Thank
everybody.
you so much. You guys were amazing. Just I wish we had more time. I think the two of you, I wanted to hear the two of you talking about menopause because it's not my area of expertise. I do all midlife, but menopause is not my total focus. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Was
Yeah,
so
it's really interesting. Yeah.
Loved it. Thank you for having us.
Oh, a pleasure. And I'm sorry for my cough. Thank you for covering for me, Adele. I'm not
No,
sure.
you're fine. I was like, oh shit, what have I to say?
I don't think I need to like coat my throat beforehand. It's kind of, that was kind of where
Yeah.
this, I've been doing radio forever and I've never had a major, I've had it with clients and things. So, and I know, I think Adele, we're talking Monday?
20th, yes.
Yeah,
So,
the 20th.
yeah.
Okay. Hopefully I can make it. I'm starting radiation on Thursday. So
You just let me know how you're feeling, all right? And if we need
I'll be feeling fine. It's just a matter of when I don't get my schedule till tomorrow. So I don't know when I'm going to be scheduled for. Is it via Zoom?
We'll actually be doing it via a platform that I use called Riverside.
Okay.
So it's just it's similar to Zoom, yeah, but we it basically means that we record. You'll have your headphones in with a microphone, and then you'll see that it starts to upload to the cloud, and then my podcast manager just signs into my Riverside and deals with it. So it means that we don't need to do anything but speak.
Okay. I will let you know tomorrow when I know what time my appointment is.
Yeah,
So
no
I
worries.
apologize for that, but that,
You're all good.
I'm trying to advocate, but they really try to control you. So
I
and
know.
Sophie, I would love to try some hypnotherapy. That sounds so
Well,
interesting.
Ellen, I am working with someone on imagery who's having treatment for cancer at the moment.
Oh, okay.
We're doing a lot of really interesting kind of imagery to help her with the chemo and the radiotherapy. So yeah, if you are interested, I've got a couple of MP3s that you might want to have a listen to.
Are they available on your website?
No, I will send them to you. I've done them privately. So, but yeah,
sleep is an issue for me. And I know, I mean, I wake up multiple, I heard you saying that going like, God, sleeping straight through the night. I don't sleep straight through the night. So especially with a lot of my mind, but thank you both so much. So this will be up probably tomorrow, and I will have both I'll have just a sound bite with each of you with sound bite. You all said so many amazing things, so I'll have like a 15 seconds with your face, and you can utilize that on social and the e-card as well. So thank you both so much.
Amazing.
Thank you, and nice to meet you, Adele.
Hey Sophie, I'll drop you a wee message.
That'd be good.
You guys have got to connect. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening.
Bye. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.